This month's guest is voiceover professional and master of the VO Pro. I was going to say Dojo, but that rhymes, but that'll get confused with the VO Dojo. And
That's
we don't
right.
want those people coming after you
Right.
because they're like ninjas.
Yeah.
Like they will mess you up because they
Oh,
run a dojo. So like they will like karate chop my face. So we're not doing that. Paul Schmidt, everybody.
hello. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you so much for jumping on the VO strategist wagon here.
You're
Thank
very
you very
kind to
much.
invite me. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. All right, so this is how it's going to go, everybody. We're gonna hang out with Paul for the next hour or so, give or take a little bit. You're all welcome to ask all of your voiceover business and or marketing questions, or non-voiceover business and marketing questions. If you want to talk about pay-to-plays or AI or unions or home recording or genres, performance, we are happy to take all questions. The thrust of the evening is business and marketing, but we're happy to, Paul and I are always happy to talk about anything voiceover related. So let's just start off with the old origin story. So, Paul, tell us about how you got into the wonderful world of voiceover.
Oi. Well, I think like most of us, I sort of backed into it, right? When I was a kid, I was a stage actor, much like yourself. But I guess the main difference is I grew up in Baltimore in the 70s and 80s, and the only thing there was to do at the time were musicals. And I am not a singer. But if you give me 6 weeks of practice and a patient music director, I can get there, right? So I did, I don't know, 25, 30 musicals when I was a kid and always wanted to be an actor and couldn't wait to get to college because I knew that's where they were doing non-musical work, right? And freshman year, I was the only kid to make the main stage and got thrown into the deep end. We did Chekhov, The Three Sisters.
Oi.
Yeah. Yeah, Oy is right. Deep, dark, heavy Russian theater, and something in my brain just broke, and I said, "No, this is not for me. I'm going to take a break from the theater." And that break ended up lasting 15 years. And in the meantime, I wandered over to the broadcasting building on campus and discovered radio and college radio and you name it, and ended up going into that field when I graduated. So couple years after that, I got a full-time job in Wilmington, Delaware. I was the morning show sidekick. And after my shift, they handed me a stack of CDs and scripts, and they said, "Okay, go make commercials out of this." And I went, "Huh? Okay." And that's where I learned production, and that's also where I kind of stumbled on this concept of voice acting because the stuff that we were doing in the production studio at the radio station wasn't as good as the stuff that we were getting in from the agencies and from national and what have you. And I said, there's a big difference here, and I want to be more like that and less like this. And that started me down the voice acting odyssey. And I bought a book. Remember books, Tom, with
Vaguely.
like a pile of paper with a binding on it.
Oh yeah,
And
those are the things that you're supposed to ban, right? Okay, I
right,
remember those.
right, yes. I bought a book by a guy named Sandy Thomas, who is still in the business to this day, called "So You Want to Be a Voiceover Star." And good God, I ate this book, Tom. I consumed it like food. And I actually reached out to Sandy, wrote him a letter. Remember those two? We used to drag a pen across a piece of paper.
Yes,
And
those are the things you're supposed to burn in protest.
exactly.
Okay.
So I wrote Sandy, and he wrote me back and was super supportive and inspirational. And I really went hard. And this was 1998, 99. Really went hard to try to get into voice acting. I got the 30, the 5-minute cassette tapes from Broadcast Supply Warehouse and the laser printer label templates, and would stay late surreptitiously at night at the radio station to use the black and white laser printer, which was about the size of a Volvo, and did my had my 5-minute demo, or actually it was a 3-minute demo on a 5-minute cassette because you couldn't get 3-minute cassettes at the time. And I went hard at it. I sent out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of demos, but I was in Wilmington, Delaware. And so after a couple of years of beating my head against the wall, I learned a couple of things. Number one, if you weren't union, it was a tough road to hoe, right? If you weren't in New York or LA, maybe Chicago, it was a tough road to hoe. If you didn't have an agent, it was a tougher road to hoe. Um, and being in Wilmington, Delaware, and this was before the internet as we know it now.
Hmm.
And there were not, there wasn't a digital online coach hanging off of every street corner. The coaches were in New York and LA, and I even went so far as to get an unpaid internship at Mike Lemon Casting in Philadelphia to try and learn the business that way. And what I was told was essentially, voiceover at that time in that market was the redheaded stepchild because the talent that were on camera, they had the relationships already, and so they got the voiceover work. And so I crashed and burned the first time. And then, I took side clients, as many radio people do. I had a home studio. And God, about maybe 8, 9 years ago, I went, I got to find a way to do more of this work. It lights me on fire. In a way that my day job did not. And so I started poking around again and come to find out the world had changed. We now have YouTube. We now have non-union voice actors that are, there's a hell of a lot more work out there because of digital video. And so I put a plan together to go full time and was able to accomplish that 9 months later. And the rest, as they say, is Schmidtstery.
Wow. So, how long did it take for you to transition to be a full-time voice actor?
It took me 6 months to put my plan together because I had in that interim, I'd come off the air and I'd gotten into sales and marketing. And so I had a lot of sales training over the course of about 10 years. And so I knew what it took. I knew I was going to need better systems and tools and messaging. And so I spent 6 months on all that stuff. And once I completed the plan and started enacting the plan, it took me 9 months to go full time.
9 months.
9 months.
That's amazing.
It's amazing, and it's got a couple of caveats.
Okay.
I don't think that's realistic in today's day and age. It was quick even then, and this was 2017, 2018. And I will say that I jumped too soon. It was 9 months. I probably should have stuck a year and a half, maybe 2. I got 6 months in and lost a client that represented at that time 50% of my income. Evaporated overnight through no fault of my own. The CEO just wanted a younger sounding guy. Okay. So I jumped a little too soon.
Big lesson there, everybody.
Yeah.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Nope.
Or
And
50%
that was a hard lesson to learn. And I had to kind of duct tape it together there for a while, Tom, because, when you lose half your income overnight, and I was making a pretty good income, but it wasn't enough when you cut it in half. And so I drove Lyft for a while. I got a little help from family, but I knew the key was to not go back to a corporate job because that's when 40 to 50 hours of my week would disappear and I wouldn't be able to have the time to build the business back up. And so I duct taped it together for a few months.
Cool. What genres do you do the most?
Still, I looked at this again about a month and a half ago. Still, corporate is about 50% of what I do. That's still my bread and butter.
Are we talking corporate explainer, industrial,
product demos, launches, anthems? I even lump medical and technical narration into corporate because it's roughly non-broadcast work. And then about 20 to 25 in a good month, 30% of what I do is commercials, local, regional, occasionally national. And then the remainder is what I call dribs and drabs, right? The occasional documentary, the occasional feature film, a little bit of phone work thrown in there. I do some, I've been actually pursuing for about the last year, museum work. And that's paid off nicely. So that's still in the dribs and drabs thing, but that's becoming more of a strong point for me. So I enjoy that work. I love it a lot.
Any political voiceover going on this season?
God, maybe 5, 6 years ago, I strategically, I made a huge error, and since I'm talking to the VO strategist, you will appreciate this, Tom. I tried to not offend anyone. I did a demo, which was an issues demo, neither leaned right nor left, and I got exactly nowhere with it. Right? You've got to
Yeah,
pick
you got
your
to pick a
poison.
lane. Yeah, you
Yeah,
got to pick a color.
yeah. So I don't do a lot of political, and in the climate now, I choose not to.
Okay.
I have very strong opinions. I'm very pro one side of the aisle, but it's not something I want to bring into my work quite yet. I'm not
That's
ruling it
fair.
out forever, but not right now.
Yeah, that was my tack for a very, very long time. And about 2 years ago, when our friend J. Michael Collins did a presentation on political voiceover at One Voice, I was like, oh, okay, midterms are coming up. Let me see, because I was always under the impression, because you hear I have a relatively youngish sound, and I always
Absolutely.
thought that wasn't the right voice for it, but I was mistaken. So I do get some work, not as much as I'd like, but more than I thought I would, which was none. So,
Sure.
all right, okay, so interesting origin story, not conventional, and also it predates pay to plays, social media, home recording, because I decided I wanted to be a voice actor in 1994, so
Right.
just a couple years before you decided to dive in. So let's talk a little bit about VO Pro,
Okay.
which is, well, you can tell them what it is better than I can. So tell us a little bit about VO Pro, briefly what it is, and then how it started.
So VO Pro is a global community of voice actors with a business focus. That doesn't mean we stick hard and fast or laugh and point at anybody that asks a non-business question or a performance question. Uh, but we generally have a business focus, and that's what we do. That's a little bit different from a lot of VO communities.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a paid community, so it's not on Facebook. It is, and I always knew that Facebook was not gonna be the answer for me
Mm.
because, on one hand, Facebook's a toilet, right? There's a lot of bickering and arguing, right? There's ads, there's distractions, there's a billion other voice actor groups, right? And I wanted
Mm-hmm.
something that was gonna be a lot more focused, a lot less distractions. And so the community actually started as our community of students in our signature course, our signature program, which is called the VO Freedom Master Plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the community became the support mechanism for that program because I'm one guy and I've got, well, now close to 200 VO Freedom Master Plan students. So there's no way, that math works, right? That math don't math, as they say. So we built
Mm-hmm.
an online community, which was originally on Facebook, of master plan students to support each other. And that just kept evolving and evolving. And now, because we're on another platform, we actually use the Circle platform. We have so much more functionality than Facebook. We're able to
Mm.
offer additional courses and workout groups and webinars, one of which you were kind enough to host yourself. And we're able to do education a lot better than we were able to do it on Facebook. And so you can join VO Pro now for a monthly subscription
Mm-hmm.
without laying out the money to be in the VO Freedom Master Plan. You don't get the master plan. You don't get the coaching calls that come with that, but you
Mm-hmm.
get pretty much everything else. And the focus is, one of the things is, we have what I call ritualized accountability, meaning on Mondays, we lay our goals out for the week. During the week, we talk about our challenges, what's getting in the way of those goals, and how can the group help us. Right? We
Mm-hmm.
can we can ask things of the group, whether it's advice, whether it's mindset stuff, whether it's just sanity check me, whether it's I need a tool that does this. Can you help me? And then on Friday, we hold ourselves accountable to our Monday goals by celebrating our wins. And when I say celebrating our wins, I mean those wins, Tom, can be that big, right? They can
Yep.
be, I reached out to a client cold this week for the first time ever. I was scared to death, but I did it. That's a huge win, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the wins are more traditional, or what we think of as bigger and hairy, or hey, I booked a great commercial gig, or hey, a client reached out to me on my website or whatever it might be, but sometimes they're tiny and those need to be celebrated because if we look, man, we're all stuck in our tiny little padded cells talking to ourselves, right? If we don't take stock of our own wins from time to time and do it regularly, it's real easy not to notice them and to think we're spinning our wheels all the time. And
Mm.
so that on Friday, our Friday wins not only allows us to take stock of our own wins, but to celebrate those of others around us. And it's so much fun. Friday's my favorite day of the week.
Very cool. Very cool. It's funny because I was going to, my next question was going to be, why is it important to have a community or be part of the voiceover community? But I think you already answered it with what you just said.
Well, I think
Uh,
there's a number of reasons. One, mental health. Uh,
yes.
Two, I think it's important. Look at what Nava has been able to achieve in the last 2 years, right?
Mm,
If we didn't have a sense of community, there's no way that, I mean, and as amazing as Nava is, if there wasn't a sense of community among voice actors, that job would be a hell of a lot harder.
yeah.
So we need a sense of community to advocate for our business and our industry. We need a sense of community to bolster each other up and go, look, you need to know your worth. You need to command rates that are good for your business because when you don't, it affects all of us, right?
Hmm.
And I firmly believe that we're much more collaborative than we are competitive. And I think wherever you can find community and be connected to other voice actors, because our spouses, our loved ones, our partners, they don't know what we go through on a daily basis. We need to connect with other people that do, that get it, that understand it, that know the struggles so that we feel less alone.
Excellent. Excellent answer. And I agree 1014%. And
1014. I think that I'm
1014%.
gonna
Feeling
write that down. I
particularly
think that's
generous today. Yes, please do. And everybody who's watching, you're welcome to type in your voiceover questions, be they business, marketing, or any other aspect of the voiceover industry. And right on cue, Mr. Carrigan jumps in, who I was just chatting with on LinkedIn this morning. All right.
Xavier's in our VO Pro community. Hi,
Oh,
Xavier.
and that's the first thing he says. I'm in the I get to use this fun feature of StreamYard. Boop. I'm in the full master plan program, but can say the community is worth it. Being connected and dialed in with others sharing the same goals is truly worth it.
Yeah, Xavier's been with us. I feel like it's coming up on about a month, and he's quickly become a really great contributor to the community. And that's what that's what any community thrives on is people that participate. If you stand on the sidelines, if you're a wallflower, the whole thing just goes down the chute.
Yeah, I mean, you could operate in a vacuum, making your own decisions, not, attending any events or workshops, not being part of any social media groups. I mean, sure, technically you could make your way through the voiceover industry that way, but I wouldn't advise it. Not just because I'm the guy that wants money to be able to help navigate the maze behind me, but it's an extremely complicated, complex, confusing, daunting, challenging industry that has no playbook. I mean, there are books, but you can read all the books about voiceover in the world, but once you kind of dive in, it's really hard to swim without having some swim buddies.
And it
But anybody,
changes so fast,
it
right?
really
Books that
does.
were written 4 years ago are almost obsolete, right?
With technology and culture changing as rapidly as they are, absolutely. Everybody else who is hanging out with us tonight, you're welcome to type in all of your voiceover related questions.
And Xavier, you're
Paul,
very kind to say the things that you said. I appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, very cool, man. From a business perspective, what was the biggest lesson that you learned from a business perspective about the world of voiceover that got you to where you are, or it got you, or broke you through that membrane of whatever that was preventing you from the success that you wanted?
I think the thing that was preventing me was, we I hesitate to use the term because Tom, in this business we tend to throw the term around gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hate the term, but I felt in 1998, 99 that there were definitely gates. I didn't think I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there were curators of talent, right? The talent agents, the casting directors, and that still exists today. That hasn't gone away, although the role has sort of shrunk in a lot of genres.
Mm.
And it really doesn't apply to others. But when I realized that I could go after clients and build relationships on my own without needing an agent, without needing a person, or even without relying on the casting sites, because that way I'm going to own my relationships, and if I own my relationships, I'm going to have a little bit more control over them. You never have complete control. I told the story earlier about how I lost 50% of my income overnight because just the CEO wanted a younger sounding guy. That's going to happen. You're always going to have churn, but you have a little bit more control over it when you own your own relationships. So when I realized that, oh, the world has changed and I can go do that now, that's when the gloves came off for me.
Interesting. One thing that I've really been noticing a lot lately is how you can cross pollinate relationship relationship development, and all the different ways that everybody can each thing can serve each other. And I think you're right. What it ultimately comes down to is being able to form relationships, nurture and develop those relationships, and the ability to do that requires, yes, we talk about marketing in voiceover, but most of the time people think that's just a bunch of templatey cold emails and look at me on TikTok. And while that can be a percentage of what it is, it really is about relationship building. So with that in mind, Paul, what is the most important part of establishing and nurturing a relationship with a potential or continuing a relationship with an existing voiceover client?
In a word, Tom, it's trust, right?
Yeah.
And there are, a myriad of ways to build that, but largely, number one to me is honor your word, right? Because if you can't do that, you have nothing upon which to build trust. So, what does that mean? Oftentimes, it means setting proper expectations so that you're not only honoring your word, but the client knows that you're honoring your word. Setting proper expectations not only so that you can meet them, but oftentimes so that you can exceed them, right? And if you can build trust, if the client can say, you know what, if Paul says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. If Paul says overpromise, underdeliver. There's so many business cliches, but they all revolve around building that one thing, which is trust.
Absolutely. And out of that trust comes respect.
Absolutely. That's to me, it's the only way you earn respect is when
Uh,
you can say, I'm going to do something and then do it.
right.
Right? That's the only way you earn self-respect, when you make yourself a promise and then you follow through, or you don't. You either build up or tear down your own self-respect.
Yep. And Mr. Carrigan continues the conversation. Investing in myself is a no-brainer, and Paul's program has already illuminated some of the far more opaque areas of getting my business going. Oh, okay. Well, that leads. Okay, so Paul, give me one or two or three of what you consider the most opaque areas of getting your voiceover business going.
I think, number one is marketing,
Mm,
meaning that I think for whatever reason, we've produced a generation of voice actors that believes once I get my demo, once I have my website, all I have to do is sit on the pay to plays and audition all day long, and the money will just roll in. Those days are kind of over. If for no other reason, we had such a flash flood of talent during the pandemic,
mm,
much of which was untrained or undertrained.
hmm.
And I understand, like, I'm not casting aspersions. It's just what happened. And the pay to plays have become so flooded that it's really hard to be able to just use that as your primary source of work anymore, especially if you're a newer talent and you weren't on before the pandemic. You didn't have the relationships, you didn't have the algorithms trained, right? It's really hard to come in and a new talent. Jay Michael and I were talking about this a few months ago, and he said, "Look, it's not even the kind of problem that you can just throw money at. You just can't buy the highest tier on the pay to plays and expect to succeed." Number one is marketing, and I think that's the mindset shift that I had. I think is one that I try to encourage people to make, and that is you can go directly after clients. You don't have to have anybody's permission, right? You can go out there and be your own best agent, because your agents are only, unless you're an elite commercial talent, your agents are only going to be a small part of your income. You've got to be your own best agent. So marketing is number one. Number two, I think, is rates. And to address that, thank God for the GVAA, right? And
Oh
gravy
yeah.
for the brain. We actually there are so many collaborative, creative uh, uh, areas that people work in, Tom, that don't have such rate cards, right? I know graphic designers and coders, and like they're all running around like Keystone Cops trying to figure out what's an appropriate rate. And it's the wild, wild west. It's still the wild, wild west for us, but it's a lot better for us than it is in other disciplines. But that said, once you have a good rate guide, gravy for the brain, GVAA, whatever you're using, wherever you are, you still have to develop that with a sense of negotiation, when to give, when to take, when's, the nuances of the rate guides, because they're all, they're only going to cover about 60, 80% of the scenarios out there. Hopefully the most common 60 to 80%. But you're always going to have edge cases, and you're always going to have to figure it out on your own. And there is no owner's manual, and you have decisions to make for your own business. You may quote a job, an identical job, a little bit differently than I might, because I might have different concerns in my business than you have. And so it takes a while to figure the rates thing out. So within our community, we built a course called VO Rates 101, which teaches people how to use a rate guide. We use the GVAA for examples, but it's applicable to no matter what rate guide you're using.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a dedicated space called the Rates Room, which is a dedicated forum within VO Pro where if you have a burning question, you've got a quote that's due in 2 days or tomorrow, you can sort of bounce it off me and all the other pros that are in there and get some feedback to make sure you're not losing your mind, to make sure you're not missing anything in the spec. And that's become super helpful for folks.
Fantastic. And I just posted the Global Voice Acting Academy rate guide as
Perfect.
well as the Gravy for the Brain rate guide.
Yep.
Both of them are amazing. David Toback has done an incredible job of making a comprehensive, darn near definitive breakdown of the non-union rates. What's especially great about what Hugh did at Gravy for the Brain is that it has an international rate guide, which is really fantastic because that's another great thing about voiceover is that you can develop relationships with clients literally anywhere on the planet.
You can. However, and this is my belief, and this is how I run my business. It may not be for everybody. I always, because I'm in North America, I always use the GVAA rate guide because I feel like I should be using the rate guide that has rates that are appropriate for my home country, because that's where I operate my business. That's the subject, that's the cost of living I'm subject to, right?
Mm-hmm.
My business expense runs around my physical location, just as it would be for somebody in Great Britain or Asia or wherever. And I believe that it's most advantageous for a business to use the rate guide that applies to where the voice actor is, not where the client is.
No, I like that. I like that. I agree with you. I also try to synergize it. So if it's from a client, a potential client from a country I've never worked in before, I do look at Gravy for the Brain, but I also look at the GVA rate guide and kind of see if there's some kind of synergize or middle ground or some kind of area in there where they can work. Because some of it, different countries have different economies, and
That's right.
sometimes it's just like you're not going to be able to bridge that gap. But no, it's a good practice, and it's a good point for everybody is that you have to pay for your own overhead based on the economy of the country and the cost of living of the country that you live in.
Yep.
So you said marketing is one of the biggest areas for opacity, and rates is one of the biggest areas for opacity in the voiceover business. What would you say is the most transparent part?
Oh, honestly, I think it's the fact that I think the thing that everybody gets fairly quickly in this business is how great this community is. The first time you walk into your first conference, the first
Mm,
time you get on a workout group with people, uh, people in this business, and Tom, I swear, I've said it a million times, and it still surprises me. It's like nothing I've ever seen in my life. I was in theater, I was in radio, I was in corporate. Nothing compares to the camaraderie and the sense of community in this business, and I still have, I have theories, but who knows? Who knows why? And in the end, who cares why?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
whatever reason, this is the most supportive community of people I've ever been associated with. And I think that's pretty apparent if you let it be when you walk in the door. There are people that are by nature combative and competitive and always have their guard up. You're not going to last a whole long time in this business if that's you, because people are here to help you. You either take the help or you don't, and you either build a sense of community or you don't. And those that have a sense of community with their peers and with even with their clients do better in this business.
Yeah. As somebody who lives in Manhattan and went to school here in Manhattan for classical acting, and very briefly tried my hand at the competitive theater. I mean, I barely even dipped my toe in it before I discovered voiceover, and I was like, oh, and not even understanding what the community was, because I really didn't become part of the voiceover community until 2002, 2003, when I attended an ITVA meeting, International Television Voiced Artists meeting, which
Wow.
then turned into MCAI, Media Communication Association International, and then it dissolved. But there is when I met other voice actors for the first time in person, and I'm like, wow, these people are nice. And and then going to my first voiceover mixer, which was 2008, run by Eric and Lindsay Shepard, agents who still represent me to this day. And I couldn't get my code off before people were like, Tom, and it's like, I didn't met any of these people, but I knew them through John Florian's Voiceover Extra magazine and the Voiceover Bulletin Board and the smattering of voiceover Facebook groups that are around there. And yeah, I agree, Paul. I don't know what it is. Um, the fact that, maybe it's just the fact that, there's competition. Only one person can book and get paid for this one voiceover role. But like, I remember just doing auditions and stuff in New York City, and everybody was just, it was so cutthroat and nasty, and people would just, they would be thrilled to throw you under the bus, literally, so they could get this part. But that doesn't exist. I tell everyone, there is no competition in the voiceover industry because there is plenty of work for everybody that knows what they're doing. The question
And
is,
that's the caveat.
do they know what they're
Knows
doing?
what they're doing. Right. Exactly.
Right. Oh, well, and that's why VO Strategist and VO Pro exists. So,
Yeah.
hey, everybody, don't forget, you can still type in your questions about anything voiceover business marketing related or any other subject. So let's talk a little bit about marketing while we're at it. From what I've been hearing from you is about developing relationships, and you don't necessarily need agents, and you don't necessarily need an online casting site to develop those relationships, which means you are a major proponent of direct marketing. Is that safe to say?
That is very safe to say. That's the pillar upon which I built my business, right? Because like I told you, when I had that epiphany, like, oh, I don't have to wait for an agent to send my audition somewhere. I don't have to wait for auditions to come in on Play Place. I can be proactive, right? That's when the bell went off, and yeah, so that's how I built my business. And everything that I did in that 6 months prior to going full time was building the systems and tools and processes necessary to spin up that well-oiled machine.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's I like, to me, you gotta treat it like a business, and if you treat it like a business, well, guess what? Every business has a sales and marketing department, right?
Right.
And if you don't spend time on that stuff, well, you get what we get in this business, which is, right now, 50% of us make less than 10 grand a year. 75% of us make less than 10 grand a year, and 50% of us make less than 50 grand a year. So that's not a lot of money. And that's when that statistic has aged a little bit. It's gotten a little bit better with probably inflation and maybe a little bit better circumstances. But when I read that, it was maybe 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
the figures were 50% of us were making less than
$8,000.
$8,000 a year.
I remember the survey. That was the first voiceover survey.
Yep. Yep. And 75% of us were making less than 40 grand. So it's gotten a little bit better. It's gotten about
Mm-hmm.
20% better. But my jaw dropped because I went, holy hell, I'm marketing the crap out of myself and I'm having a lot of success and I'm making a hell of a lot more money than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, obviously for me, sitting at that intersection, I went, well, there's cause and effect here. We're not making any money because we're not reaching out to people. Because also in that survey, they ask voice actors, how often are you reaching out to market your services? And 75% of us said less than 3 times a day. Like, what business in the world can talk to 2 people, expose themselves to 2 people a day, and expect to be successful, right? So that told me we had a very passive mindset and mentality around being proactive and going out and finding business. We're waiting for our inboxes to fill up and our voicemails to fill up.
Right.
And when they don't, we don't have an alternative, right? Well, guess what? We do.
That's what I call the American Idol chorus line, God, I hope I get it mentality.
Yeah. Hope marketing it has never been particularly effective.
Not so much. Not so much. And I think that's an American culture thing. All of these movies and TV shows and musicals and stuff have taught us that you will get discovered. And that does not happen in voiceover. So I want to get some numbers right. So once you kind of got all your ducks in a row, it took you 9 months to kind of get to a full-time status.
Yep.
All right. And in that 9 months, were you saying that the lion's share of your efforts were through direct marketing, cold emails, warm emails, social media, blogging, newsletters, all the inbound, outbound marketing stuff? Is that safe to say? Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, that was my entire. Now I was on one pay to play at the time, and I was doing what you do, which is I was probably doing 10 to 15 auditions a day on the pay to plays. But remember, too, in that 9-month period, I still had a full time day job that I was beholden to. So I was getting up at 4 a.m., doing my marketing, sending out my emails. Trying to schedule them for later, 8, 9 o'clock, so that clients would actually be in. I'd work all day for my employer. Sometimes I'd surreptitiously return emails at my desk at lunch, right, on my laptop. And then I would run home. I'd do any paid work that came in, any more auditions that came in, and try to get my butt in bed by 9 o'clock because I had to get up at 4 a.m. the next day. And the next day. And that's got to be sustainable. And to do that, you need proper rest. So I lived like a student for a while and did nothing but get up in the morning, market my business, get home at night, try and run my business, and get up and do it all over again. And of course, I worked Saturdays and Sundays on the side hustle then. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
So it took you that 9 months to get to full-time, as in you were able to quit your day job, right?
Yes, correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been a fun day to go to the office and tell your boss.
It was a fun day. It was also an unexpected day because what happened was I had booked a crazy amount of work in a very small amount of time. I think it was I booked $35,000 worth of work in a week and a little over 40 in like 11 days.
Oh boy.
Right. Couple of big corporate contracts. One was that big client that I talked about earlier. That was one of my gateway clients. And I remember sitting at this desk one night and going, holy hell, how am I going to get all of this done? Like, how am I literally going to get the work done? How am I going to find that time? And I went, I'm going to have to quit. I'm going to because this is going to be full-time work for me for at least 6 or 7 months. Right. And so I went to my boss later that week and I was like, here's what's going on. And he's like, okay, I get it. You don't have to give me 2 weeks, give me 1 week and off you go. And that's what happened. And yeah, it was an exciting day, but it was also unexpected because
wow,
I didn't expect that big sort of glut of work to happen all at one time. So
students ask me all the time, how do you know you're ready to go full time? And I always tell them the world will tell you.
I have
things
a
like
little bit
that
different.
happen.
Yeah, but at the same time, the world will tell you, but at the same it's like having kids, Tom. If you wait until you're ready, you're never gonna do it, right? You're never really ready as much as you
Mm-hmm.
think you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you've gotta take a leap. You don't take a stupid leap, right? You don't quit your job and go, "Well, I'm gonna be a full-time voice actor," and you haven't spun up your business yet.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta do this for several years in most cases. I think it takes now 4 to 6 years to from the minute you decide, This is something I might wanna do," to the minute you're able to quit your full-time day job, and look, it also depends on what your income is from your day job. I know people that uh, have very lucrative daytime jobs making 6 figures, sometimes well into the 6 figures, and they can't quit and do what they love because they're beholden to the golden handcuffs, right?
Yeah. And the
They've got a
lifestyle that
mortgage to
it,
pay and
yeah,
kids and, lifestyle and blah, blah, blah. So,
right.
not everybody can do it,
Yeah.
but
All right.
I think 1, yes, the world will tell you, and 2, you're never gonna feel ready.
Right. I had to get fired
Really?
from my job to be to start my voiceover. And yeah,
Wow.
and it got legally ugly too. So I had to lawyer up, and my lawyer, who was also a friend at the time, after the meetings and stuff, he's like, "What are you doing? Why are you torturing yourself with horrible jobs like this where they treat you like garbage and now you have to hire me? Just go start your voiceover life. Just do it." And that was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think the world has shifted toward that, Tom, because in fact, I was talking about this with somebody today. Gen Z now actually prefers more than half prefer to go the entrepreneurial route rather
Yeah.
than to get a job
Yeah.
because for the last 40 to 50 years, we've seen corporate loyalty go right down the shitter,
Yep.
right? There is no corporate loyalty anymore. They will fire you and not even think twice about it.
No.
Why would you be loyal to an organization like that when you can bet on yourself and have when you do it right, have a lot more stability and a lot more security than you would have working for a corporation? It's completely counterintuitive, but it can be true.
Yeah. All right. Daniel has a great question. How long did you spend practicing scripts in the beginning? And what was your process? I'm just starting and trying to improve and want to have a game plan. How about, what do you,
Yeah, so that's a tough one. So for me, my beginning was a little bit different because I was getting a pile of scripts, 4 to 6 every day that I had to produce, which not only taught me mic technique and that sort of thing, but it taught me how to record and edit and mix and all that great stuff. And I estimated, at one point, I think I had produced over 6,000 radio commercials.
whoa.
So I got the tech end down really fast, which was nice. But I also ingrained the radio read, right?
Mm.
Which is not conversational. And I still fight that to this day.
Mm-hmm.
God bless Tina Morosco for her patience.
Mm-hmm.
She's slowly beating it out of me. Um, the long and the short of it is, Daniel, practice as much as you can. Set aside time. I wish I had my coffee mug every damn day to practice because your first job for the first year or 2 that you're getting into voice acting, you have 2 jobs. Number 1 is to figure out whether you really like this or not, right? And you can only do that by doing it. Number 2 is to get really, really good at it, as good as you can possibly get in that time period. Because if you don't get good, you have no product to market. You have no service to market. You're going to be replaced by AI now. I mean, that's just a reality. So spend time on it every day if possible, because consistency builds results.
Yeah. I'm going to build upon that. And I'll also answer the question too, is like, I I barely practiced scripts starting out. This is also the 90s. I had a lot of theater training. And then 1 year after I did my first voiceover, I fell into a regular e-learning gig that I still have 27 years later.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I cut my teeth because I mean, a huge chunk of my work is e-learning. I have never received a stitch of e-learning training. I just was thrown into the recording booth because my friend was moving and who was a fellow theater major, and they said, "Hey, replace yourself." And he's like, "Call this number." And I
No kidding.
just started, not even audition, not a demo submission. I just started and I just figured it out. And yeah, and that was 1997. But Daniel, for you, I want to give you a very important VO strategist system of thought. It sounds like it's going to contradict what Paul said at first, but it really isn't. Never practice scripts. Never practice.
I know where you're going.
Because that implies that as a result of you just doing whatever you do at home, that you're going to come up with the perfect read. And it doesn't exist. It's impossible. There is no such thing. You have no earthly idea what a perfect read is for anything. You won't know it until the client says, that's the take. And you know what? Most of the time, they don't know what the perfect take is until they hear it. So I want you to replace the word practice with experiment. I want you to put your lab coat on. And whatever the script is, I will go to the store. And just mess around with it. I will go to the store. Okay, well, that means I will as opposed to somebody else. I will go to the store. Maybe someone's thinking that you won't, or you have to drum up the courage. I will go to the store. I will go to the store. I will go to the store as opposed to somewhere else. And just doing that stress exercise completely changes the meaning and the intent and the motivation. Just doing little things like that, and try it faster. Make observations. Try it slower. Change your pitch, change your inflection, change your placement. Say it through your nose. Say it through your gut. And don't judge anything. Because one of the most important skills that you need to develop, Daniel, is the ability to take direction. Because if you can't take direction, you are useless. All the talent and all the training in the world don't matter if you can't take direction. So don't develop bad habits when you're practicing scripts at home, or get yourself caught into what's a better read than another read. There are no good reads and there are no bad reads. There are no good choices and there are no bad choices. There are just stronger choices and weaker choices in context. So practice your scripts every day, but make sure that you have the experimentation, exploration, non-judgmental view, so you can be as open to direction as possible when it comes time to be directed by a human, or when it comes time to self-direct with an audition or a booking that you're doing from home. Cool?
Well
Makes
put.
sense?
Well
Thank
put.
you very much. Okay, Brian. Brian says, the hardest part for me is marketing. I didn't know what ad agencies to contact, where to go to let people know I exist. What do you got to say about that, Paul?
Well, you got to learn your targets, right? If you're going to go after people, you have to learn what kind of companies, what kind of roles within those companies hire people that do what we do. You know, take a stroll through LinkedIn and see who the voice actors that you know are connected with. What kinds of roles are they connected with? Are they, are they connecting with directors of marketing or creative directors at ad agencies, or what kinds of roles at what kinds of companies? You're gonna have to figure that out. As collaborative and as cooperative as this business is, I still find it a little shocking when people ask me to give them leads, right? Like, I worked my entire career to build up my prospects and my client list. I'm not going to give that to anyone else. I love you, but you're going to have to do this for yourself, right? There's a fair amount of work that you're going to have to figure out, but you will if you dedicate the time to it, right? You're going to reach out to some people that are, maybe not perfect, and you're going to learn, and then you're going to reach out to somebody that replies, and you're going to start working with a certain kind of people in certain roles at certain companies, and over time you're going to figure this thing out. But I would encourage you to start with LinkedIn, because that's a huge database. It's public as long as you have a LinkedIn account, where you can start to research the kinds of companies that might hire voice actors and the kinds of roles in those companies that may be the decision makers.
Excellent answer. I'm going to zoom out and back up a little bit on that question, which is one thing I tell my students is I do encourage my students to get on pay-to-play sites and audition their faces off. Not because it's the answer to voiceover, but it does a couple of things. What Daniel was asking about practicing scripts, you should never think of an audition as an opportunity to practice, but you should think of it as an opportunity to find your voice. And this also has a direct, there's a direct line between what you can learn through repeated auditions on pay-to-play sites and what you can learn on direct marketing to agencies or production companies or recording studios, is that, and this is a hard lesson I tell everybody, the voiceover industry does not care what you want. The voiceover industry only cares what you can book. And most of the time, when you're starting out in your voiceover journey, you have no earthly idea what you can book. So this is an exercise that I give everybody. And this can work for pay-to-play sites or any free casting site, or if you're looking for gigs on Twitter or Discord or Reddit or anywhere else, is that when you start auditioning for stuff, and you find not even getting bookings yet, but you're getting good feedback on it. It's a thumbs up on Voice 123, or it's a whatever on voices.com, or an actual message from someone saying, "Oh, hey, thanks for that. I loved your audition. We'll keep you posted." I tell everybody to look at those casting notices and find what genres that you're starting to get holds or bookings on, and specifically, what are the adjectives in those casting notices that you seem to find over and over and over again. I'll ask you, Paul, but my number one is upbeat. If I see I noticed this pattern for years now on all the casting sites, is when I hear upbeat, when I see upbeat in a casting notice, I like my chances. And when I see Ryan Reynolds in a casting notice, I really like my chances.
Nice.
Because I can't do a Ryan Reynolds impression, but I can I'm able to give off that subtle sass of whatever he does. And so what about for you, Paul? What are the things that you've noticed? What has the industry told you that your marketable sound is?
My number one is friendly. Friendly. If there's friendly in the casting spec, like you, I like my chances. That I know I can nail.
Right.
But it's not about just being a one-trick pony either, right?
Right.
Conversational has been traditionally a challenge for me. I've made a lot of strides, and there's also tiers, right? If I see conversational in a local or regional spot, doesn't scare me. I see it in a national spot, I go, I damn well better nail this, right? I better bring my A game. So there's different contexts and different tiers, but friendly's my go-to.
And Paul, you made a very, very good point, because there's radio ads, which you need to speak very, very quickly, and you tend to perform in primary colors, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you start, and then you get to Pandora ads, YouTube pre-rolls, streaming digital, there's friendly, it's not quite as rapid. It's a little more conversational, but very friendly and warm. And then you get to those national spots, and it's just a different strata. It's just a different type of performance that's expected. And you never know where you're gonna land. Because you know what? If you can keep booking work for local and regional radio stations, for pizzerias and car dealerships, and you're making decent money and consistent money, and it keeps coming in, good for you.
Right.
That's
but
amazing.
There's also no incentive to get better sometimes, right?
There's no incentive to get better. And that's the other thing is, and I know Paul knows this, is that voiceover success is an ever moving, elusive target. It changes. So the question I have for you, Paul, is that it took you 9 months of almost entirely direct marketing to get you where you are. And you've been full-time 6, 7 years now, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Next year will be start my 7th year.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a big deal. It really is a big deal. I'm so happy for you and everybody, whatever, regardless of your milestones and benchmarks. But how did it stop working? And what did you have to do to change it? Like, has your direct marketing strategies from the very beginning in that 9 months, does everything work same exact way? Your emails, your subject lines, your thing, is everything, or did COVID change things? Did AI change things? Did Me Too change things? What has changed? Has any of that stuff influenced the efficacy of your direct marketing efforts?
Well, I mean, it changes. We mentioned this before. It changes on a dime, right? It changes at light speed. COVID was a big one because
Mm.
of not only the influx of talent, but it made certain tactics completely irrelevant. For example, one of the things that I liked to do up until the pandemic was after I did a job for a client, I'd sit down on Friday and I'd look at all the jobs I did that week and I would handwrite. In fact, I think I still have one. I still have a few of them.
Whoa.
Maybe not. I thought I had them handy here in the top drawer and I don't. But I had custom printed thank you cards, right? Had my picture, had the word gratitude on the front, and I'd write and mail all my clients for that week a handwritten thank you card. Well, the COVID hit, and suddenly nobody was in an office anymore. Everybody was working from home, and understandably, nobody wants to be stalked at their home. And so, I've had to change my thank you tactics. That's one small example. We also had that influx of undertrained and untrained talent. So now it actually kind of helped me in direct marketing because the newer talent hadn't caught on yet to direct marketing. I was able to differentiate myself in that way. But yeah, another technology change. If you go back even 2 years, Tom, I could on a given day reach out to 300 to 500 people in a day. That circumstance no longer exists because the ISPs, the internet service providers, the email service providers, ESPs, have really cracked down on volume because it's one of the ways that they now filter for what they consider to be spammers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so not just in voiceover, but in any business development area, it's become much harder to reach out in the volume that we did even 2 years ago. And so we've had to change strategies and tactics around that. So the business, the market's changing rapidly, the technology's changing rapidly, the culture's changing rapidly. Me Too, I didn't feel like was a huge direct change, but there was a diversity movement that I think was at least partially born out of Me Too.
Yes.
That, up until 5 years ago, most of the people that were getting considerable work in voiceover looked like you and me. They were middle-aged and up and white and male. And we've had a much needed market correction to that. Has it made it a little bit harder on guys like us? Yes, it has. Should it have? Yes, it should have, because now it's forced us all to be better.
Yep. Better
And now
storytellers.
we're getting more authenticity in casting. We're getting more authenticity in even corporate work. And I think I largely think it's a huge step forward in our business. So that was another change that sort of, you got to react to all the time. And, it's not just about being a voice actor, Tom. It's about being a business person. Market conditions change in every business more quickly than they ever have in the history of business. If you don't adapt well to change, you're just not going to make it.
Wow. And holy crap, did that hour go fast?
Yes, it did.
That was
Yes, it
amazing.
did.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you very much for all your amazing questions and observations. Paul, where can everybody find you and work with you and join your community?
Got to get a little bit better at this. The community is at vopro.pro. Again, that's vopro.pro, not .com. And you can find me on LinkedIn if you search either my name, Paul Schmidt, or VO Pro. The YouTube channel is VO Pro-Pro. Instagram, you'll find me. I'm highly confident you'll find me. And then we have the also at vopro.pro, we have the Move, Touch, Inspire newsletter, which now goes out to thousands of voice actors every week. So I invite you to sign up for that. It's free, and it usually comes out Thursday, Friday of any given week.
Amazing. Very, very cool. Paul, thank you so much.
Dude, I am eternally grateful for this hour. It's always fun when you and I chat. I'm sorry we missed each other at Uncle Roy's this year, but I know
Alas.
I'll see you in Atlanta, right?
I will see you in 2 weeks at in Virginia at
Oh, you're going
Mavo.
to Mavo.
Yes, I am going to
Fantastic.
Mavo. I am presenting at Mayo. I was offered a spot at VO Atlanta. I had to turn it down for logistical reasons, so I will not be. I will not be in attendance. But there's all kinds of stuff. So
Yeah.
I will be. I will definitely see you at some point next year. But I'll see you in literally like 2.5 weeks.
Like, yeah, it's not even like 10 days,
It's
right?
coming. Yeah, it's
2
coming up
weekends
pretty good.
from now. So
November 8th. So it's pretty close. It's pretty
it
close.
is.
And for those of you who are watching, hopefully we will see you at Mavo in Herndon, Virginia on November 8th. There are still some tickets available from what I understand. And the VO Mixer, I know there's an annual New York VO Mixer the first Saturday in December. Just look around on Facebook. You'll find a Facebook event for that and all the amazing voiceover events and conferences that will be happening in 2025.
That VO mixer I've been trying to go to for 5 years, Tom. And
I
this
have
year,
not missed one. I've not missed
awesome.
one since 2008.
This is
My
going to be my
streak is
year. And then
unbroken.
this thing came up that I'm going to in Phoenix at the same time. So I'm missing not only the VO mixer, but I'm missing the Navigala as well. So
Oh, I'm so sorry. All right. Well, I will see you in a couple of weeks. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with Ask Me Anything with our guest, Paul Schmidt. And for those of you who would like to work with me, you can go to vostrategist.com, book that free 15-minute consult, subscribe to this YouTube channel. And everybody be cool, be safe, and happy voicing. Thanks for coming, everybody. Bye.